Welcome back to the Bad Beat Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Eisenstadt. Today we got Mason Sawyer on the show. Mason, thanks for joining us today, man. I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, man, I love Vegas, so glad to be here.
Hopefully you're not partying too much.
No, I grew up playing basketball, and the Easter Classic was always in Vegas. So when I was little, Vegas was like the trip.
Really?
Because all my buddies would go play basketball. So I loved Vegas for different reasons, but
I'm not a sports guy.
really,
No, not at all, dude.
yeah, I'm a hooper for sure.
So were you playing while you're out here?
No, I just drove down for this. I just live in St. George, just 2 hours away.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Thanks, dude.
I might play a little blackjack before I leave town, but
Well, hit me up. I'll go with you.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
I love a little
I love blackjack, dude. I mean, that's like my therapy,
blackjack.
to be honest with you. And I don't know why, but it seems to be the only place where I could shut everything off. Like, I don't pay attention to my phone. I don't pay attention to anything besides just, like, being present in the moment, playing some cards.
It's funny that you said that because some of my bad days, I'll drive down and
Gamble.
I think you're right, dude. I think there's something to it, like the headspace you're in.
Yeah.
That I do enjoy. Losing money, I don't enjoy.
I know.
But you know, what are you gonna do?
It's a coin flip, though. It's like, it's either going to make you feel really better, you're going to get that dopamine rush from winning a shit ton of money, or
Yeah.
some money, whatever, depending on how you're playing, or you're going to feel like 10 times worse about yourself as you leave, and you're like, fuck, I could have bought, like,
yeah, that's usually how it ends up.
I could have bought, you know, dude, I've had some horrible gambling experiences, to be honest with you, and that's something I never talk about. I don't know how much you gamble or not.
Not, I used to, and then after the car accident, not so much.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so where are you from originally? Are you from St. George originally?
So I'm from West Jordan, Utah, which is near Salt Lake.
Okay.
And then I played college basketball at Utah Tech. Well, it used to be called Dixie State, which is in St. George.
Okay.
So I'm kind of from St. George, I guess.
Yeah. Were you traveling when you moved to St. George when you played ball, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
With your family?
So I played college ball at Utah Tech. I graduated in 2016. Moved my family up north, where I was originally from, West Jordan. I became the head basketball coach there at my old high school for a few years. And then this company called Nets on Fire in St. George offered me this job. So then I moved my family back to St. George, and then that's when the car accident happened.
What is Nets on Fire?
It's like a big, fancy basketball complex. So they just have 4 NBA-sized courts in there, and they hired me to be like their basketball operations guy. So I would put AAU teams together and do trainings and coach. And
How old were the people that you were coaching?
mostly high school,
Mostly high school kids?
middle school.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah,
And you feel good about it too, right? Like you're helping kids?
I mean, in my opinion, it was the greatest job. Dude, I was a basketball trainer.
Right.
That was it. I'd wake up and play basketball. And so I loved it. I thought it was the best job ever.
How old were you?
Oh, this was like 3 years ago when I took the job. So I was 29. I'm 32 right now.
All this is really recent.
Yeah, dude. It is all really, really recent. Yeah.
Holy shit, dude. I thought all of this was like...
No. This just happened, man. Yeah. So the car accident happened. We just passed the 2-year mark.
Oh, my
On
God.
the car accident, yeah. So pretty fresh still.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And that may have been really confusing to all the listeners, all that back and forth. And now to make it even more confusing, after the car accident, I moved back up north, lived with my brother. And then I moved back to St. George to work at Nets on Fire again. So I'm living in St. George again. So lots of back and forth from those two places. But
And are you living with anybody now?
just me and I have one kid left. So me and Blue live together. And yeah, just me and him.
All right. Well, let's dive into what happened and
Yeah.
and how you've moved forward and the things that you're doing now. Because I mean, I've seen you all over. We've had this plan for like probably 4 months, 5 months or something, right?
I'm like, when am I going to go down there? And I looked at my calendar and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's coming up. So I texted you like, hey, are we still good?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. It's been a while.
Okay, so from my understanding, you got the job at Nets on Fire.
Yeah.
And then there was like a family reunion or something that came up. I mean, I'll let you tell the story. And
Oh, yeah, you're right. So just took this new job. And I'm like a family guy. So at this point, I'm married to my wife, Courtney. We were high school sweethearts. Like, we started dating when we were 15. Never broke up. So, like, never even have an ex-girlfriend, dude. Just so me and my wife, and we have 3 kids, Riggins, Blue, and Frankie.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 23.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how old were you when you had Riggins? Was your oldest?
Riggins was our oldest. He was born my senior year playing basketball. So he was born in 2015, 16.
Senior year of college.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Senior year of college.
Okay. So 2015, you have your first son.
Yep.
Okay. And you guys were already married.
Yeah.
Okay. And sorry, I'm just trying to like break down so I fully understand everything. You know what I mean?
Sorry, we kind of jumped into it.
No, I know.
Awkwardly, but yeah. So, so I'm married with my high school sweetheart. I'm coaching at my old high school, West Jordan High School. And we have 3 kids, Riggins, Blue, and Frankie. 2 boys, one girl. Frankie's a girl. And I get that job offer from Nets on Fire. Seriously, like my dream job. Like, what the hell? So we moved back to St. George, Utah, like 4 hours away. And then, dude, like every summer we have like a family reunion.
Right.
And we never miss them. But this year I just took this job at Nets. And it's the weekend of our first tournament. So I put this team together, signed us up for the tournament, and happens to land on the same weekend. So I tell my extended family, my mom, my dad, like all of them, like, hey, we can't go this year, sorry. And they're like, oh, like, we totally get it, no worries. So a few days go by, my wife, Courtney, it gets to Friday, and I'm getting ready for this tournament, and my wife's like, St. George, Utah's hot in the summer. So she's like, hey, it's 110 outside. You're going to be coaching all weekend. I'm taking the kids to the reunion. Like, they'll have fun. We'll be at the lake. It'll be great.
Was the reunion in Jordan?
It was in Bear Lake, so northern Utah.
Okay.
So maybe 5-6 hours away from St. George.
Oh, geez.
Up north.
Okay.
So, okay. And, like, what you should do is you should call my brother Race and his wife Keisha, because they also live in St. George, just a few miles away from us. Like, it's a long drive. Maybe you can carpool with them, or you guys can kind of follow each other down. So, like, you know, smart idea. And she's like, yeah, good idea. So she calls my brother Race, and they kind of have the same thing going on. My brother Race is able to go with his youngest son, Ryder. But Race's wife, Keisha, and their son, Ran, and their daughter, Faith, can't go because of football and other things.
Right.
So it worked out, though. So Race and Ryder, they go with my family to the family reunion.
They're all driving in the same car.
All driving in the same car. And so I coach the basketball tournament. It's Sunday, and Courtney texts me, like, we're coming up. Love you. See you soon. I'm like, cool. So I have like 4 hours to kill waiting for him. And I've always loved motorcycles. I'm a Harley guy. So I'm like, well, I never get to ride it because I have three kids. So I'm like, man, this will be a perfect time to go ride my bike. And we're living in a small apartment at the time because we bought a house, but we can't move into the house till August. So I'm renting this little apartment for a few months so we can move into our house.
What month was this?
This was July.
July.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't even have room to fit my motorcycle anywhere. So I'm keeping my motorcycle at my buddy Jake's house. He's actually the assistant basketball coach at Utah Tech. So I keep it at his house. I'm like, hey, can I come drop off my car, take my bike out? He's like, yeah. So I take my bike out, and I go on a ride, and then I kind of time it so I come back when they should be home. So I come home, and I go into the apartment, and I have some missed calls from my sister-in-law, my brother Race's wife, Keisha. So I call her back, or maybe I texted her. I don't remember, but I'm communicating with Keisha, and she's like, Mason, I have a bad feeling. Like, I called Race. It went straight to his voice message. I called Courtney. It went straight to her voice message. I just don't, I don't have a good feeling. And I told Keisha, I'm like, oh, I'm sure traffic, like they're fine. Should be home any minute.
Right.
So I'm thinking, I'm in my room and I'm like, man, that is kind of weird. So I call Courtney and go straight to her voicemail. And then I call my brother Race, goes straight to his voicemail. So I'm like, okay. And then probably 30 seconds go by, not a lot of time. My phone rings, unknown number. So I answer it. And he's like, hey, this is Dr. So-and-so from Fillmore, Utah. Fillmore is a small city in between St. George and Salt Lake. And so immediately I'm like, this is not good.
Right.
So I put him on speaker as he's talking, and I text Keisha because my mind goes to the worst place. So in my mind, I'm thinking Courtney's hurt, Race is hurt, kids are in the hospital, in the hallway, confused, crying. Like, we need to get there.
Right.
But I don't know any details yet. That's just kind of what I'm thinking. So I hurry and text Keisha because I have my motorcycle. I don't even have a car. So I text Keisha. I'm like, hey, come pick me up. We got to get to Fillmore. There's been a car accident.
How far is Fillmore?
2-hour drive.
2-hour drive.
So I got that going on as he's still talking. And the guy talking, he's doing a good job, but I think there was a lot of confusion because there was a car accident. And it was caused by this big dust storm, like just kicked up out of nowhere, caused this blackout, caused a 22-car pileup, and it killed 8 people, and 5 of them were my family. So I think when the first responders arrived at the scene, they probably thought it was one family, like my brother's the husband type of thing.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, this might be 2 different families, actually. Because when the guy called me, he was asking me a lot of questions, like, are you the owner of this car? What's your, like, I'm like, dude, like, what is going on?
So did he give you any details? Like,
He just said, car accident, are you the owner of the Buick? And then I'm really fuzzy in this phone call, but I remember saying, like, what's going on? And that's when he told me there's been a car accident. Everyone in the car is dead except one person. And so I fall to the ground.
Holy shit.
The stages of grief?
Yeah.
I'm kind of experiencing all of them. Like, in and out of all of them. Like, I'm denial. Like, no, wrong. Like, no, you're kidding.
Yeah, like, it's not possible.
And then I flip through, like, anger, depression, bargaining. I'm, like, bargaining all of a sudden. Like, not good.
While you're on the phone with him?
Yeah, so I literally fall down. Like, my phone drops, I collapse, and I'm crying on the ground, and I'm staring at my phone. And I just kind of hear his word, like, one survivor, like, echoing. And as I'm going through all these stages, like, these different parts of me, like anger guy, confused guy, sad guy, there is, like, a survivor acceptance guy. Like, every now and again, he steps in. So he finally steps in. He's like, Mace, you got to pick up the phone. Like, we got to keep going. Like, who's the survivor? And so I pick up the phone, and my brother Race was a state championship wrestler, and then he got into, like, amateur MMA fighting. Just kind of a tough son of a bitch. Like, just really tough. Always admired him.
Right.
So in the back of my head, I'm like, it's going to be Race.
It's your older brother?
Yeah. I'm like, if anyone's going to survive, it's going to be my brother Race, which meant my whole family's gone. And so I remember picking up the phone, like, please don't be Race, my brother. And the amount of guilt I've had from that has been hard to work through, but I worked through it through talking about it. But I felt bad for that for a long time. Like, how can you wish your brother to be dead? But I had that thought.
I don't really necessarily think that, like, I understand why you felt guilty, but I don't think you should ever feel guilty because, one, there's no book on telling you how to react to that, right? There's no right or wrong.
Yeah, I can't imagine there being a right or wrong to something like that.
Right.
And it's funny that you said that because, like, Robert, like, what you said is right. It doesn't make really any sense. But I don't think that's how mental illness works. Like, there's another part of me in there that fucking hates me for it.
Right.
Like,
I understand that.
so it's like a weird thing. It's like these two competing voices almost. So I pick up the phone, and he's like, the survivor's a 3-year-old. So I fall back down to the ground, and that means Courtney, my wife's gone. And high school sweethearts, dude. Like, met her when I was 15. And, like, I don't want to say, like, we were perfect, but, like, I loved her. She loved me. We had a beautiful marriage. It was awesome. And the car accident was so bad, I couldn't even see her body. They said, we'll let you see her hand if you want to see her hand, but that's all that you can do. Which I decided not to do that. And then I later felt guilty for not doing that. But so Courtney's gone. My first son, Riggins, is gone. Like, losing a kid, man, like, not good. My brother, Race, is gone. And then my nephew, his youngest son, Ryder, is gone. And then the 3-year-old, like, I have my daughter, Frankie, who could be, like, she was 2, but could be 3, like, I don't know. And then my son, Blue, who was 3, almost 4. So, like, when you say, I don't know who they meant.
So you didn't know, still at this point.
And I'm so broken, and I'm going through it, obviously. So I'm not thinking very good.
It's happening so fast.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm just trying to soak this in best I can. And so the conversation continues, and I think in my head, I'm thinking, I think the survivor is Frankie, because she was she was 2, so her car seat was facing the
backwards.
Yeah, so I'm like, just logically, I'm like, I bet it's Frankie.
So you're still running these scenarios
Yeah,
while you're on the phone, like,
yeah. So this is all unfolding, and so I remember saying to him, like, oh, I think you have my daughter. And he said, no, this isn't a girl, this is a boy. He has blonde hair, blue eyes. And my son, Blue, he had blonde hair, blue eyes. And so I had this weird, like, when he told me it was, like, sounded like Blue, my son, I had, like, wow, like, Blue, because I thought it was Frankie that was the survivor. I'm like, wow, Blue is actually alive, like this feeling of hope in all this darkness. And then I realized, like, well, dude, like, if Blue's alive, that means Frankie's dead. So that crossover really fucked me up pretty good. So he says the survivor has blonde hair, blue eyes. He's not able to talk, but he's okay. We're life flighting him to the hospital in Salt Lake City, University of Utah. And that's a 4-hour drive for me. And I'm still confused. I don't know if the one survivor's Blue or if it's a 22-car pileup. So is it from my car? I'm so confused. I'm not even 100% sure if it's Blue at this point.
right.
Or it could just be some kid. I don't know. So they say they're life flighting him. And then he says, I need to get in contact with Race's wife, Keisha. And I said, well, she's actually coming over to pick me up right now, so I can tell her. But because the phone call is very confusing.
Right.
And so I remember telling him, like, I'm not telling her, though, unless 100% everyone else is dead. He's like, yeah, everyone else is dead. So I'm like, okay, I'll
Over the phone, he told you that?
yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'll tell her then. So, and dude, I'm living in this, and so I fall back to the ground, and I'm crying and I'm screaming and I'm going through all of it. But then the survivor guy steps in, and it's like, Mace, Keisha knows where your apartment complex is, but she doesn't know which apartment. So you got to get to the main road. So when she gets here, you can flag her down and get in the car. So I stumble out of my apartment, make it a few feet. This is Sunday, late afternoon. And it's 110 degrees outside. There's not a soul outside in this apartment complex. And I'm just screaming and I'm sure the whole entire apartment complex is like, what the fuck's going on? Because I'm just screaming bloody murder. I'm slapping the pavement with my head and my hands. Just not doing good. And then I stand up and walk and fall. And I just continued that until I finally made it to like the main road. I collapse on the pavement waiting for Keisha. And I'm slapping the sidewalk, and neighbors come out, people I've never met. And they're like, what is going, like, what are you doing?
Are you okay?
Like, what is going on? I'm sure I just look like possessed by the devil. Like, I'm just freaking out.
Right.
And I don't even know what I said to him. I think I may have told him, but I'm just crying. And then Keisha, I see Keisha's car, and so I flag her down, and she has her daughter Faith in the front seat. So I just hop in the back, and they can tell, like,
Yeah.
This is not good. And I didn't know how to say it, so I just said, there's been a car accident. They're all dead except maybe Blue. And my niece Faith, Race's daughter.
How old is she?
She's 16 at the time, maybe 15. She just lets out this scream, like a hard to explain scream, like a weird, terrifying scream, and just opens the door and starts running. Like, she just starts running. And so she takes off, and then I look at Keisha, because I'm sitting behind Keisha in her car at this point, and her head drops, and the first thing she says is, my precious Ryder, because Ryder's dead. And so from there, the survivor guy kind of kicks in, and he's like, you need to get to Salt Lake, because it might be Blue, and if it's Blue, you need to be there. So then I call my parents, and like, hey, can you get to the hospital and be there for Blue until I get there? I call my buddy Jake, tell him what's going on. He's like, what? He's like, no. I'm like, yeah, come get me. So he picks me up, and we have to drive through the car accident scene to get there to the hospital. Fuck. So we drive through that, get to the hospital.
Did Keisha go with you guys?
No, because she didn't have any survivors. There's really no point for her to go
to the hospital.
Yeah,
right.
And dude, we were so devastated. Like, so part of my family from Salt Lake drove up that night to be with Keisha, as I drove up there to be with Blue. So we're trying to help each other out. But I get to the hospital, and it is Blue, and dude, he had a couple cuts on his head, a fractured hand, but that was it. Like, he was 100% fine. And
do you know what the reasoning behind him surviving was? Like, was it like where he was in the car, or?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people play like the miracle thing.
Yeah.
I don't see that day as a miracle. I see it as like a massacre. So, like, it wasn't a miracle.
What do you believe?
I think it was just his positioning in the car, probably. But I don't know. And to be honest with you, I haven't read the report. I don't really know many details about it.
You don't want to?
I think eventually I do. I'm not ready to do that yet.
It's good for you to understand that.
I hope they went quick. That's like one thing I'm holding on to out of all this. And if I find out they were suffering for a while before they died, that would really, just kind of scared of it. Not ready to face that yet.
Okay, so your buddy Jake picks you up.
Yeah.
And you're driving to the hospital, and you have to drive by the scene.
Yeah, it's a 4-hour drive.
And it was a 2-hour drive to the scene, right?
To the scene, yeah, that's the halfway point.
Did you stop at the scene, or did you just?
No, so everything was completely blocked off. But they told me, they said, we'll create like a pathway for you, and you call us when you get close, and we'll escort you through. And we actually followed a cop for a while on the freeway. So the first responders were great and how they handled it, I think.
So did you get out at the scene, or?
No, I remember my buddy Jake is like, hey, we're coming up on it. He's like, probably don't look. Just keep your head down. And it was dark at this point, so it wasn't easy to see much.
Right.
But I did peek my head up, and at this point, I think enough time had passed. There was no red and blue lights anymore. It was just yellow lights of like
caution tape.
That type of stuff.
Gotcha.
I honestly didn't see much.
So you got to the hospital, and
so I spent the night with Blue, and the we walk out the next day and into the rest of our life, and just kind of wrapped up with lots of guilt and lots of grief and lots of pain, and just trying to keep moving with it.
All right, so I feel like we had to go through all of that because we need to get to the point of how you've gotten to where you are and what you're doing to move forward and helping empower people. What do you think was like the single most important move that you have made to move not on? Because we never move on from stuff like that, right? It'll always be in our hearts and, guilt and stuff like that. But what do you think was like the single most important decision to move forward and be there for your son and become a strong, better person, right?
I think that I don't really believe in God and stuff. I have no idea what happens to us after we die. Might be lights out. Maybe there's something. I don't know. But if my wife and kids are alive anywhere, in some way, shape, or form, like they wouldn't be laying down feeling sorry for themselves. My wife, Courtney, would be kicking ass. And same thing with my brother. And I just, after the accident, I just wanted to die so bad. Like, if I die, the pain would stop. Like, sign me up. That sounds great. Or if I die, maybe I see him again. But I couldn't die because Blue.
Right.
Dude, we went from I came home after work, 3 kids, and it was loud and messy and scream. It was awesome. And we're wrestling and we're fighting. And now I come home, quiet. And, like, the only reason I didn't put a bullet in my head was Blue. Like, I can't.
Right.
Blue was dragged out of this car. Who knows what he saw? He lost his mom. He lost his uncle. He lost his nephew. He lost his big brother and his little sister. He goes from middle child to only child. I can't leave him ever. So I'm like in this weird in-between of don't want to live, don't want to die. And I'm just full of pain, and so I'm just numbing it with alcohol, drugs, whatever. And eventually, like, I get to this, back to your question, I kind of get to this point of, like, is this what we're doing the rest of her life? Like, Courtney doesn't want this for you. And if she is alive somewhere, she's doing something with it. She's not just giving up. And so I'm like, yeah, like, I can't just, I'm basically just not dying. I'm not living, though. I'm just, like,
right,
not dying.
You went through, like, a gnarly stage. Not gnarly stage, but you went through a stage where you were just trying to numb the pain with alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
Or
Dude, it was, like, wake up whiskey.
Really?
And then...
Were you a drinker before?
No. 2 in the afternoon, sleeping pills. Like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this. And I was like that way for a while, and then I started going to therapy, and I hated it. And then, dude, I have a buddy named Josh Lamborn, and he lost his wife and daughter in a drowning accident. Like, saw him drown, and I remember I trained his kid in basketball, so that's how I knew him. And, dude, this is going to sound really fucked up, but so I heard what Josh told me. Josh, his wife and daughter probably drowned 7 years ago now. When I was talking to him, it had been 5 years, I think. But I remember this is before I had my car accident. I remember I was talking to my buddy Josh, and he tells me, like, yeah, I lost my wife and my daughter. And I, like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's been 5 years. There's God, there's heaven. I'm like, in my mind, I'm sure he's fine. Like, I feel so bad for having that perspective now. Because then the car accident happens with my family, and he's one of the rare few people that I'm willing to listen to because he knows somewhat of the pain I'm going through. And so I start going to lunch with Josh, and Josh is like, hey, I know you don't like therapy, but you should try this therapist. He's like, deals with people in heavy amounts of grief and trauma like you. I think he can help you. So I go see Matt Quackenbush, and And dude, I have such a bad attitude in therapy. I tell my therapist what happens, like I just did to you, and I tell him I don't want to live, and then I just stare at him, and it just wasn't having it. Like whatever like the way I saw therapy was like, am I getting any of them back at the end of this session?
Right.
No, then what the fuck are we doing?
Like it was a waste of time.
Yeah, like what are we doing?
Right.
I just hated it. So I go in to see Matt Quackenbush, this therapist, and I tell him the story. And I'm waiting for him to say some therapeutic bullshit like that doesn't matter. And he looks at me and he says, you know, Mason, this car accident's not about you. And it's not about your son, Blue. I'm like, who? Like,
who the fuck are you?
Yeah, like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But I was intrigued.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I'm listening, and he's like, dude, and then he told me, he said, Mace, if you wanted to drink yourself to death or put a bullet in your head, I don't think anyone would blame you. My therapist told me that. First session with this dude.
It's like you just meet this guy and he's telling you.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you got some balls, dude. Like, I'll fucking do it, man. Like, you don't know how close I am. So he says that to me. But then he immediately follows it up and he says, but Mason, as bad as your situation is, it's an opportunity for you. And I'm like, and I'm listening.
Does that piss you off?
It did.
At the time, right? That would piss me off.
When I heard the word opportunity, it really pissed me off.
Right.
And he said, Mason, like, opportunity doesn't have to come from something good. It can come from the absolute worst thing. And he said, Mason, you do have an opportunity. And he said, let me tell you this. Tomorrow, someone's going to lose their wife. Someone's going to lose a son. Someone's going to lose a daughter. Someone's going to lose a brother. Someone's going to lose a nephew. He's like, you can help all of them. And so I don't really remember what else we talked about the other 57 minutes of that session, but I remember leaving that therapy session, and it was like, he's right. Like, am I just going to lay in bed and feel sorry for myself the rest of my life? Like, is that going to be it? Or do I, like, help people with this? As bad as it is, do I try to help? So I'm like, well, how do I help people? And I wanted to become a therapist. I'm like, well, I can't do a master's program right now. Like, what I've just been through. I'm like, well, how do I start helping people?
How recent, like, how close after the accident did you start seeing this therapist? Like, what was the timeline on that?
That's a good question. I'd probably say 6-7 months.
So you went through like 6 or 7 months of just agony, hating your life, drinking alcohol, doing drugs, whatever.
Yeah, never talk about him. I would not talk about it ever.
Do you know why?
Yeah, hurt.
It hurt.
It's terrifying. And one thing I learned is the place of healing, it's the same place where the pain and the hell is. And that's why it's so hard. And that's why it's so terrifying for people to talk about it. It hurt. Not only is it terrifying and vulnerable, it hurts, man. Like, why go into that abyss of pain?
Right.
But if you keep going back to it, eventually you're going to find the good parts of it, and eventually you're going to find the healing within it, and eventually your perspective might start to shift. But if you're not willing to walk through hell, you're not going to find the heaven within it.
Right.
And that's what I started, dude, talking about my pain, man, like, saved my life, dude, or at least made me start living again and made me a good father to Blue again. But, like, I think maybe back to your question, maybe that was it. Maybe that was the single most important thing I did was I started opening up and saying, like, I'm really hurting. I need help. And I think that was the bravest thing I've ever done in my life, maybe. And dude, like, think how fucked up that is. Like, I lost it all, basically. Like, I lost a lot. And it was still hard for me to ask for help. I can't imagine guys, like, going through less than me.
Why do you think that is?
I think part of it is
because you're right.
Yeah.
Like when like, and I don't necessarily think that's like a gender role. Like, I don't think it's just men that deal with that. I think human beings is like a purpose, right? Yeah. Like, I think we all, when we're dealing with stuff, we have a hard time asking for help.
I think one of the reasons just thinking of me,
Right.
From my experience.
Yeah.
I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. And that's not how it works at all when you talk about it, actually. And I think another part of it is, dude, like we just compare ourselves all the time. Like we do. Like he makes more money than me. He has a nicer car than me, or whatever. Like we compare ourselves. Right. I think we do the same thing with trauma. Like, why should I talk about how painful my divorce is when this guy just lost his wife and kid in a drowning accident? And I think because we compare it, we're like, oh, like there's people have it way worse than me, so I shouldn't talk about it. It makes no sense. It's like you lose an arm. You're like, I'm not going to the hospital because some people lose 2 arms. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like, dude, you're hurting. You need help, man. So there's a couple reasons I think. I think it's scary. It hurts to talk about it, and then the comparison thing.
How do you get over it?
You can't.
No?
No.
Do you still struggle with that?
Wait, with what part?
Like being able to ask for help or being willing to talk about things like I mean, we had the conversation before we even started this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like it's awkward for me even now still. I've told my story a bunch of times, just like you. And even now for me, it's still awkward. Like I don't want to talk about it in like a group conversation or whatever. Yeah. So how do you move forward when you're dealing with something? How do you ask for help? Like what are the things that you have learned throughout your process to be able to put yourself out there and say, hey, like I'm hurting right now?
I think other people, when I wake up and I just think of me, I'm done, dude. I'm going to have a bad day.
Really?
But if I wake up and I'm like, oh, I get to go on a podcast today, or I get to do a public speaking thing to a high school or a basketball team or whatever it is, and I can help other people, yeah, like that makes me want to talk about it. But talking about it and then drinking and not doing anything, you're just, if you're going to talk about it and not do anything and talk about it and have no action, to me, that's being a victim. To me, that's being a crybaby. But if you want to talk about it and then go help someone with it, I think that's the bravest thing you can do. Or if you want to talk about it in hopes that you're going to encourage someone else to talk about their pain, I think that's a very noble thing to do as well. And again, I think that's what's hard with acceptance. Because if you accept something, the next step is action. Like you got to do something now.
Right.
I think that's a lot of people don't want to accept it because if they do, now I got to change my behavior, or now I got to do this or do that, and that sounds awful, so I'm not going to accept it.
So let me ask you a question. When you hear other people's stories, right? Because on the point that you brought up of, and sorry for like the very like upfront questions, I guess, or however you would say it.
I love them.
When you are hearing somebody else's story, right? Because you talked about comparing stories. When you hear somebody else's trauma, are you ever like it's not that bad, or are you like, do you try and indulge in it and dive into it? Because, you know, for me, and I'm going to be honest, like I've heard some people's stories, and this is going to sound fucked up to say, but I'm like, dude, it's not that bad. Like you don't see what's on but maybe that's because I've moved through these things. Like it's like, you don't realize what's coming next. Right. Because a lot of like what you said, I believe when you go through hard shit, you have to go through that hard stuff to become the person that you're going to become and able to help other people and do all these things. So when you hear other people's stories, what is that like for you? Because for me, and I'm just being completely transparent and honest with you, when I started talking to you before the show about like a little bit of who I was, it was a little uncomfortable for me because I didn't, dude, I'm just being honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not that it was uncomfortable. It's just, I didn't want it to be like, I've been through some shit, but it's not enough. Just like what you said.
I just talked about this.
I know.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
But what is it like from your perspective?
So there's this book called No Bad Parts that me and my therapist, it's kind of bizarre, but when the car accident happened, like I'm just split up in all these parts. Like there's a part of me that just wants to drink the pain away. There's a part of me that would love to die. Like, let's die. Sounds great. There's another part of me that tries to find pain, like purpose in the pain. So I have all these parts of me. And one part of me is very sympathetic to everyone. And I just focus on the fact that we're both hurting, and that's what we should focus on. And death and pain is like the one God we all worship because it's the one thing we're all going to experience. But yeah, I do have another part of me that's like, can you shut up about taxes and the weather?
Right.
Like, yeah, so I'm with you. I think it just kind of depends on what state of mind I'm in and how good I'm doing that day.
Have you ever been in the position where you've been on the other end of that?
What do you mean?
Like, I mean, I guess that would be hard, but like, have you ever been, like, even talking to your friend that lost his wife and daughter, right? Daughter?
Yeah.
Drowning. Have you had a hard time opening up to him about your situation or anything like that? Not that your situation was less or more, but you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think, well, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to Josh was I felt like just his experience was real relatable to mine. And it was just hard in those early stage. This is early, right after the accident. I'll talk to anyone now, but I could not talk to someone, or I could not talk to a therapist who their biggest issue was like a divorce. Like, why are we talking? But what I realized, dude, is that's a victim mentality. Like it, and this was my mentality the first year after the accident, and it's almost like your ego is almost part of it.
Yeah.
Like I had this part of me was like, no one can relate to me. No one's lost what I've lost. So how dare they give me information? No one knows what it's like to walk in my shoes. Like, I dare you, try to walk in my shoes for a day. And that might sound cool and tough, but in reality, that's victimhood. Because what I'm doing is, if no one relates to me and no one can give me advice, I can do whatever I want.
Right.
There's no accountability. There's no trying to get better. There's no trying to get stronger. It's just poor me, why me? Don't shut up. And it took me a long time to realize that. But those types of thoughts, that's victimhood. If you think no one relates to you.
Right.
You, like anyone. No one knows who it's like to be anyone else ever. So why is that ever, like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't lead to anything good.
I fucking hate that you just said that, to be honest with you. Dude, because I feel like that all the time.
It doesn't work. It's not going to do anything good, man.
And I guarantee you a lot of people watching feel like that all the time. Like, yeah. I literally feel like, man, nobody understands what my life is like.
Yeah, like.
And not that I'm, like, playing, like, victimhood or, like, a pity party. Like,
right.
I don't, whatever, right? Yeah. I just keep moving forward. But how do you get out of that mentality? Is it, like, do you just start being vulnerable and open up? Or
so one thing that helped me was the attitude of, it's not about me at all, actually. And now it's back to the therapy session with my therapist when he said, this isn't about you or Blue. We call it we is greater than me. And that's one of my favorite things is like I said earlier, like when I wake up and I make it about me and losing my wife and my son and my daughter and my brother and my nephew.
Bad day.
Yeah, like it's going to be a bad day. But if I can take that and bless someone else's life with it, or open up and share my pain and it helps someone else, let's do that, man. Let's focus on the we. And that's something that's really saved me, is it's not about me.
Jesus. So it's an ego thing then.
I think that's definitely part of it, yeah.
Right? Like getting out of your own way.
Well, what does the ego do? The ego protects you. Same thing in the deepest parts of the hell you're experiencing, your ego will be there trying to help you. Dude, how about this one? How about God only gives us the people that can do it. Like what? Like God only gives something like this to the strong people that can endure it. Like that doesn't make any sense to me at all. But that's another ego one. Like imagine if I thought that. Like God gave this to me because I'm the only one. Like that's not good. That's not it. I don't. Not for me.
Were you like a faithful person? Like, did you believe in God and stuff before? And has that changed?
Grew up Christian, served a mission for my church. I mean, I grew up LDS, which is very strict Christianity. Like, loved God and prayed every night, and yeah.
And that's changed.
Yeah.
Because of the accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? Do you think is it a mentality of like, if God was real, this wouldn't have happened kind of thing, or?
I don't want to come off as like cursing God.
Yeah.
Like fist up in the air. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Look, man, I think everybody has a different perspective on life.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong.
And dude, like if God's your thing, I'm like, go for it, dude. It's just not for me. It doesn't help. It doesn't help me.
It's fair.
Yeah.
What does help you?
We is greater than me, man. And I think, like, I know it sounds simple, huh? But
Well, it's purposeful. Finding purpose in your day, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if you're going to wake up every morning without, like, dude, something so stupid as, like, me going to work, right?
yeah,
And hopefully you can relate to this. If I have nothing planned throughout my day, I have a bad day.
yeah,
But if I purposely, like, schedule a bunch of stuff throughout my day, I end up having a really good day. So to transition that into something else of, you know, if you wake up with a purpose of something that you have to do during that day, you're going to have a good day. But if you wake up and you're just like, I got nothing to do.
yeah. No,
I got no people to serve.
yeah, I just drink or like get me out of here type of thing.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, back to the God thing real quick. Like I love pain and misery. Like that's the way we grow. I get that. So I get that part. But like,
Are you saying you try and face it head on?
yeah, just like, okay, like let's say your dad. This is just gonna be a bizarre like scenario.
Okay.
But just work with me here. But let's say you're married, 3 kids. Let's say your dad comes over, kills your wife, kills your daughter, kills your son, then goes over to your brother's house, kills your brother, kills his youngest son. And then he's like, I did this because I love you, and now you can grow and learn from it. I don't think you'd love him or accept him or want to follow him or pray to him or thank him for things. You'd probably be really mad at him. And so take that logic. If you give your dad a beard and put him way up in the sky, I don't get why it makes it any better. So that's just kind of how I see it.
That's an interesting perspective. Replacing with somebody you know, because it's a lot more personal when you actually.
Yeah. And I get it, like trial and tribulation. Like I get it, like we need it. And I actually love I love Jesus. I read the scriptures still. I use the parables. I love the Sermon on the Mount. Like, love your neighbor, love your enemy, cast a beam out of your own eye. Like, sign me up, all beautiful. But we need death. Death gives meaning and beauty to everything. So if you're telling me a man overcame death, you're telling me he also overcame joy and all the stuff that death brings us. So I don't get how we can even live in a world without death and pain. So heaven makes no sense to me. Like, I can't imagine being with my family again in heaven with no pain or no chance of losing them. There's no way I can love them.
So how do you hold on to hope, though? Right? Like,
dude, hope it's great, but it's terrible. It's like, have you ever read the book Fight Club?
We can't talk about that. I'm just kidding.
Dude, that was the greatest answer someone's ever given me to that. That was good, dude. First rule of Fight Club. No, but he talks about only when you lose absolute hope do you finally gain your freedom.
Say that one more time.
You lose your hope, you gain your freedom. So in other words, hope traps you. And listen,
you lose your hope, you gain your freedom.
Yeah, you should read the book. This is a good book.
You lose your hope.
Like, let me give you an example. On our 1090 podcast, I interviewed this couple that had their child had childhood cancer, and they had hope that he was going to survive it, and it looked good for a minute, and then he died. And they talked about how that hope was just crippling. Like, and like, hope is good, but listen, there's a yin and yang to everything. And too much hope could be a bad thing.
So have you ever, like, read or practiced anything about Buddhism.
Yeah.
So I am the farthest fucking thing from an expert. I've probably only heard a quote once, but it impacted me because it said desire is the root of all evil.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like Buddhism in a nutshell, probably.
Yeah, because I've really gotten into Stoicism, and they have very similar things to the Buddhist idea as well. But I'm not an expert in either of them.
Right. So wanting something is like expectations, right? I feel like hope and desire and expectations, they all fall in line with the same thing. You know, having that expectation of the result that you want or hope for to come into fruition is like a desire, or is like a root of evil, right? Because like, and something like you said, you know, hoping to get this this raise or this new job or this new house or all the bullshit that people deal with on their everyday life, right? The things that they want or they expect, and then they don't get them, and then they get depressed. And then you end up in a situation, you know, it's hard for me to say this because I don't want to come off as an asshole, but
no, go for it.
You expected your family to come home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. And when I got called by the doctor, my mind went to Race and Courtney are hurt. Kids are like, that was worst case scenario. I couldn't even imagine. I didn't even know this was like a thing, losing 5 people. Like never heard of anything like it, honestly.
Right. But it's like you had that expectation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you didn't think ever. And I don't know how you think now. But you didn't think something like that could ever happen to you, right?
Real.
But it did. And like moving forward, you find this purpose in helping other people.
Yeah.
And gaining that reality of like, okay, life's really not what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Right? Like do you lose all expectation? Do you lose all hope? Do you like,
it was gone, dude. I wanted to die, dude. I wanted to die.
No, but I'm saying like now and like moving forward.
So I think like,
do you still have expectations of what you expect your life to be like? Do you still have hope of doing different things or meeting different people or?
So let me just give you my perspective and maybe that'll help answer the question. Yeah. But like Stoicism has taught me happiness is understanding what's in your control and focusing and putting your time and energy into that. So in my situation, a lot of it was just out of my control. I can't get them back. I couldn't control the sand or the wind that day. A lot of it was just completely out of my control. And if you focus on the things that are out of your control, you're going to be miserable. You just are. And so what I've learned to do is wake up every day and like, okay, what is in my control? And at the very beginning, dude, like, get out of bed and make your bed. Like, that was...
Small win.
Yeah, like, that's where I started from. And then, like, okay, now that we're out of bed, how long can we stay out of bed? Can we do something for Blue today? Like, that was, like...
You're actively, like, actually talking to yourself saying this, right?
And, dude, this might sound silly to the listeners, but, like, if I went to the grocery store and did shopping for my son and came home and played catch with him, I felt like I just climbed Mount Everest that day. Like, I just crushed it. Like, I can't believe I did that. With all the pain and guilt that I have to carry around, that's just kind of how I felt.
Was it hard to find the energy to do those things?
Yeah, but, like, dude, I see it completely different now. So have you ever watched the movie Finding Joe?
I don't think so.
You should watch it. It's kind of older, but I met this guy named Craig in Australia. Went to Australia, did a podcast with him.
Damn, really?
Yeah, his name is Craig Lithgow. And he lost his wife, 2 kids in a car accident, climbed out of the car right before, and then his car caught on fire. He watched his wife.
And fuck.
Yeah. So me and him are like...
Close.
We're best buds. Like, we text. He called me yesterday. We talked for an hour. Like, we're best buddies. So anyway, I go to Australia. I do this really cool podcast with him. And then he's like, you got to watch this movie. First scene of the movie, there's this parable of these monks go up and they're worshiping this golden Buddha. And so they're worshiping it, and then they get news that enemy or this other territory is coming over to invade them. They're going to take over. And so what these monks do is they get mud and they cover up the golden Buddha, and then they put stone bricks on it to make it look like a statue instead of gold. And so when these invaders come, they don't destroy it, steal it, whatever. So they cover it up. Invaders come, they take over the land. Enough time goes by. All these monks think it's a legit cement statue. And then one day this monk goes up and sees a crack in it and goes up and a piece of the cement falls off and he sees this little golden shining part of the Buddha. And he's like, oh shit. So he goes back and tells all the other monks, and they come up and they start stripping off all this mud, dirt, brick and stuff. And it's like, man, it's golden. And the whole point of the story is we're all born golden Buddha. Like we're one with the universe or God or each other, and we understand our purpose and we understand what we're passionate about, and we're willing to follow those passions. Like we got it all. And then we experience trauma, or we go to school and they tell us what to think, and we go to church and they tell us what to believe. We go to the doctor and they tell us what to eat. Like, and then we fall in love with money and material things. And then we care about what other people think of us. And we just kind of cover ourselves up. And we don't understand what's within us, this beautiful golden Buddha, until you get cracked open. And dude, that's what happened to me, is I got completely cracked open. And for so long, I felt so sorry for myself. Like this is awful. And it is awful. But what I've learned through my experience of just facing it head on and not running from it is, man, like, I am so strong. Did not think I was capable of this. If you were to tell me you're going to lose Courtney Riggins, Frankie Race Rider, and then you're going to be a public speaker, podcaster, I'd be like, you're crazy. Couldn't do anything.
Right.
But dude, like, I love that golden Buddha because that's you. Dude, you're capable of doing so much, but you've just been covered up. You don't even know what you got inside of you. And you're chasing all the wrong things. But dude, some of the happiest, most powerful, most successful people have been cracked, dude. They went through something really, really hard. And what's even weirder is some of the most miserable people on the earth aren't people like me and you with sad stories. It's people who haven't gone through anything. Those people are doomed. They're looking for something to happen to them. They don't even know who they are. They haven't been tested yet in any way, shape, or form. And that's how I see it now is, dude, like, as bad as this is, like, this has given me lots of purpose and meaning. And now I get to talk about Courtney Riggins, Frankie Race Rider all the time. And maybe if I do it good enough and long enough, maybe they'll live longer than they could have ever had before if I can, make something happen in their name.
Right. Legacy.
So that's how I see it now, is just everything that happens to you in your life, as bad as it is, it's an opportunity. And like, dude, you have this big poster right here in your podcast studio. That's basically it. Like, we're all dealt different hands. How we play them is up to us. That was me, dude. Like, I got dealt a very difficult hand. But there is beauty within trauma. And if you face it head on, you're going to find the beautiful parts of it. And you're going to be okay. If you run from it, you ignore it, you try to avoid it, you're only going to experience the bad parts of it, and it's going to cripple you.
Okay, so the Buddha thing, that was so fucking powerful. I'll write it down after.
Watch Finding Joe.
Finding Joe? I'm going to write that down really quick.
Yeah.
So,
or I can send it to you.
Yeah, send it to me.
It's the first scene of the whole movie.
Okay, so
sets it all up pretty good.
Finding Joe, I'm going to watch that. The second thing that you just said was kind of crazy to me. And I'm going to be selfish here for a minute, and I'm going to get your advice from me.
Okay.
I feel like I've been through a lot of shit in my life, and we had a little bit of that conversation. And it's almost like I still struggle to find my purpose some days, right? Like my business, it's just work, right? But, you know, like I come home and I do the family thing, whatever, but like who I am, like getting that person, maybe I'm still trying to find out who I am. You know what I mean?
Maybe I think maybe you've like let's use the Golden Buddha example still. Maybe you've been cracked.
I don't think I have been cracked is the problem. And it's like, I'll admit I've been through a lot of shit. And like, dude, when I was 17, I found my best friend 2 minutes after he shot himself in the head. All my friends growing up died. My dad died at 21. Like, in a year before that, my parents were divorced. Like, I feel like I had gone through all these things, and it got me to where I am today, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if my dad didn't die, I wouldn't own my business. If, you know, my best friend didn't die, I don't know where I'd be. Like, we could have gotten in trouble or whatever, you know? All these things. But I still feel like those things haven't driven me to being cracked open and like vulnerable as I should be and like not caring about the materialistic things. Like I care about the materialistic things.
That's okay, man. You can have a nice car.
No, I know, but it's like I still care about the judgment of other people. But here's the difference about me. I'll openly say that.
Yeah. Which is, yeah. No, there's something to be said for that.
You know what I mean? Yeah. A lot of people won't say that. I do care what other people think of me. A lot of days.
So like, who are you comparing yourself to?
Oh man, everybody.
Everybody, bro. You just list all this terrible, sad shit. Like, of course you've been cracked open. Like, that's more than enough.
Dude, but I don't try to focus on it. Yeah. What was it? 2-3 weeks ago, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. 2 days later, I was on a plane for work.
So,
dude, I swear to God, I'm like, I don't focus on it. I move forward.
You ever heard of Sigmund Freud?
Famous
psychologist, psychiatrist.
I don't know.
Anyway.
I've heard of Siegfried and Roy with like the...
No, this is a different guy.
Oh.
That was a dude with a lion.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, you're from Vegas.
Yeah.
That's fine. Freud, like, he's one of the founding fathers of psychology.
Okay.
And we don't really use any of his stuff anymore because it's pretty out there, but like important for getting the ball rolling. Anyway, he kind of broke down the psyche into 3 parts. Id, ego, and superego. This is a different type of ego than what we were talking about earlier, though.
What is id?
Id is the part of you. This is like it is like a little kid. It wants what it wants, and it wants it now. So if you're hungry, it's gonna eat. It sees someone with a burrito, it's gonna steal the burrito and eat it. It doesn't care about anyone else. It wants food, sex, pleasure, now.
That's me.
Fuck. No. The whole reason I bring this up is I think you're a super ego guy. Super ego, or think of the id as the devil on your shoulder. Like,
okay.
Hey, like, let's go get that and satisfy our needs. The super ego is like the angel on your shoulder, but kind of like an unhealthy one. Like it has all these super high expectations for yourself, like unachievable. Like you're not good enough. You're not honest enough. You need to work harder. You need to do better. And then the ego, it's the ego's job to balance these two out. So like your id is like, let's go steal that person's burrito and eat it right now. And your super ego is like, no, we're never doing that. We're never, no. And then your id's like, okay, how about this? How about we get a job, we get money, we buy a burrito and we eat it. Like it will satisfy both. That's the ego's job.
Okay.
And just listening to you talk, and I bring this up because I was just talking about this with my buddy Ryan the other day. Like you are super ego driven. You won't let yourself.
No, I won't.
Yeah. You're done. You're screwed. Like you won't, and it's good because it's part of the reason why you're so successful. It's part of the reason why you kick ass, and why you have all these businesses and podcasts. You're super ego driven. Like you want to do better. But then
at what point?
Yeah, and it does have that the yin to the yang. It does have that dark side where you never feel good enough, and that's what you're doing. Talking to me, you're just doing the comparison thing. Like. You've gone through hell, and you're doing amazing. And you have a part of your brain that's like, I'm not good enough. Yeah, that's not good, man. That sucks for you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
But, like, the point is, like, it's a blessing and a curse for you.
Yeah. I don't know. So, Fuck, maybe I need therapy, I guess.
Yeah, therapy's good, man.
I think everybody should go to therapy. I've gone to therapy numerous times.
I think you're doing great, man. I don't really know you that well. We just met today, but like,
Yeah.
I think you're crushing it. Just give yourself a high five, man.
Dude, I can't.
Yeah, see,
I don't want this
to super.
He's there shaking his fucking head, dude, all the time, man. He's like, dude, you're like one of my big supporters, bro. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't want this to turn into a therapy session, and I don't want this to be about me, but I guess I wanted to hear your perspective. And I'd never heard of the super ego and the id and then ego thing, so I'm obviously going to do some research on that.
Well, the whole reason I brought that up, dude, is like, there's not going to be a good answer for you.
Right.
Because you're always going to have that part of you that's like, you're not good enough, you're not doing this enough. And it's gonna help you and curse you at the same time.
What do you think causes that?
I don't know.
Do you think it's from the traumas?
That's a good question, man. I don't know, really. I don't know. And sometimes we're more id. I mean, sometimes my id acts out, and I'm very compulsive. And we all go little id, super ego. We're all kind of in
Hills
and
and
out,
valleys.
all of them. But
Interesting.
yeah.
All right. Well, that was. I kind of feel like shit.
You're doomed.
No, I know. It's okay though, dude. You want to know what, man? I'm just the person that if there's a speed bump in the road, I go over it and I move forward. That's just how I'm built. That's how I am.
Yeah.
I'm almost desensitized to a lot of stuff. I don't know how you are, but a lot of things that happen in my life, I'm desensitized. Like, dude, I don't know. Anyways.
Dude, well, the shit you've been through, yeah, I would imagine so.
I don't know, but it's weird.
And dude, like,
and I feel guilty about that stuff.
Seeing your friend like that, and for you to think.
I mean, that's now though. This was in 2011 or 17.
But for you to say to me, like, you haven't been through that much, that's a problem. Like, we have a problem, not just for you specifically, but our society in general. Like, that's a problem. Like, you've been through hell, dude. That sucks, man. I'm sorry. But you're kicking ass, dude. And
I don't know.
Like, my podcast is called the 1090 Podcast because my favorite quote's life's 10% what happens to you and 90% what you're going to do about it. You've had a terrible 10%, but look at your 90%. And you're never going to be perfect, but, man, like, you're doing a good job, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's taken me a long time just to be able to be like, thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, no, whatever, you know? I don't know. Oh, man. So, well, dude, I definitely appreciate you jumping on. What would you say, and I try to ask everybody this, and I don't expect you to have an exact answer, and I don't know if there's somebody that is going through an exact same situation as you, but I'm sure that somebody in a similar situation will be watching this. Mm-hmm. For somebody that's going through that now, the older version of yourself that is doing the drinking, taking the sleeping pills, that wants to die, what would you say just to an older version of yourself to try and help them make it to the next day?
I'd show up and I'd tell them I love you and I'm sorry. And I understand that you're hurting, and I would just cry with them. And then, you know, I would, there is timing to it. Like, if someone's dad dies, I'm not going to say, hey, life's 10% what happens to you, 90%.
Right.
Like, there's timing to it. But eventually, like, hey, like, this is an opportunity for you. As weird and as mad as that make you feel, like, you have an opportunity. Like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do with this? You going to let it cripple you and ruin you and destroy you? Or you going to dust yourself off and get back up and help people, man? Because, I don't say anything. The only reason people listen to me is my story. Like, I have a heavy story. I'm average IQ. Like, I'm not a genius, but, like, you have an opportunity now because you've experienced something not a lot of people have, and now you have an opportunity to help people if you want. And that's about all I'd say, I think.
It's interesting.
But there is dude, showing up. I didn't like people that came up to me like, hey, it's gonna be okay. Don't tell me it's gonna be okay.
Right.
Like, it's not okay.
Now, as you were saying that, I was like, I almost like put myself in a position of when my dad died.
Yeah.
And I was like listening to you and like imagining my, like somebody telling me that or me telling myself that. And now realizing the position that you were in when your therapist told you that, fuck you.
Yeah. Good
Like,
for him, huh?
Dude.
He's a good therapist, dude.
No, I mean, it sounds like, and he's obviously helped you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And the reason my therapist told me that is his therapist told him that.
Mm.
So, yeah. So he was like, oh, shit. Like, because he had some shit happen to him, too.
Right.
And eventually, like, enough time is going to go by, and you're going to have to answer that question, like, what are you going to do about this?
I'm doing it. You're doing it.
Dude, you're crushing it, man.
So are you.
Thanks, man.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you driving all the way from fucking St. George to do this.
No worries, dude.
It's been a pleasure. Hopefully this has helped some people. Where can people find you and check you out? The 1090 rule, right?
The 1090 rule. Our podcast is on Spotify, iTunes, all the big ones, and then we do have a Instagram.
How do you spell the 1090 rule? Because I know it's different.
So you have to use the word the.
Same thing from my fucking show, dude.
Yeah,
It's so stupid.
Everyone, I think 1090 was taken by like a math teacher somewhere or something. So I had to put the. So it's the, and then the number 10, so 10, and then you spell out 90.
Gotcha.
So the 1090, but.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
make sure you guys go check him out. The 1090 rule. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, right?
Yeah, we do have a YouTube channel too, yeah.
I'm assuming like TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff.
I think we have it. My audio guy does all that stuff.
Oh,
So I
okay.
think we have a TikTok or a Twitter or something.
Oh. Well, go look him up. Awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man.
All right,
Appreciate
dude.
it.
Sweet.